On this day, the 10th of May, three souls entered our world, each destined to leave an indelible mark on history. A voice that would echo across stadiums, crying out for justice and revolution. A striker so elegant, so impossibly gifted, they called him the non-flying Dutchman. And a punk rock icon whose flame burned so bright, so dangerously, it would consume him entirely. 3 lives. 3 legacies. 1 shared date with destiny. What invisible thread connects the anthems of U2, the frozen perfection of a goal against Argentina, and the chaos of the Sex Pistols? Today, in the grey streets of Dublin, in the shadow of a city still finding its voice, a boy named Paul David Hewson was learning that music could be more than sound. It could be salvation. Born in 1960, he grew up in a working-class neighborhood where Catholic and Protestant families lived side by side, where tensions simmered beneath the surface, and where loss would shape him before fame ever could. When he was just 14 years old, his mother collapsed at her own father's funeral and died days later from a brain aneurysm. The grief that followed would never fully leave him. It became fuel. It became fire. He found his escape in the most unlikely of places, a notice pinned to a school board, seeking musicians for a band. The year was 1976. The band would become U2. And the boy would become Bono. The name itself carries meaning. Derived from a hearing aid shop called Bonovox, it translates loosely from Latin as good voice. And what a voice it would prove to be. From the raw, urgent anthems of their early years to the stadium-shaking crescendos of the Joshua Tree and Achtung Baby, Bono became one of rock music's most recognizable figures. His voice soared across generations, carried by songs that asked the big questions, about faith, about doubt, about love in all its complicated forms. But here is what sets Bono apart from so many who have stood beneath the spotlight. He refused to let the music be the end of the conversation. He demanded it be the beginning. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, and into the new millennium, he turned his platform into a pulpit for the world's forgotten. He walked the halls of power, meeting with presidents and prime ministers, advocating for debt relief in Africa, for the fight against AIDS, for an end to extreme poverty. He co-founded the One campaign and helped launch Project Red, movements that have raised billions of dollars and saved countless lives. Some criticized his methods. Others questioned his motives. But the results spoke louder than the doubters. Today, at 66 years old, Bono remains a figure of contradictions and convictions, a rock star who quotes scripture, an activist who fills arenas, a man still wrestling with the grief of a boy who lost his mother too soon. His story reminds us that art and action need not be separate, that the stages we build can amplify more than just our voices. They can carry our values into the world. And perhaps that is the greatest song of all, the one that never stops playing, the one. In the amber glow of a summer evening at Highbury, a football floated through the London air. What happened next would become immortal. A touch so delicate it seemed to defy physics. A turn so elegant it belonged in a ballet. A finish so precise it could have been painted by a Dutch master. This was Dennis Bergkamp, and this was his art. Born in Amsterdam in 1969, Dennis Nicholas Maria Bergkamp grew up in the shadow of the city's great footballing cathedral, the home of Ajax. Named after the Scottish legend Dennis Law, young Dennis would forge his own mythology, one that would stretch from the canals of Holland to the heart of North London. At Ajax, he learned the sacred geometry of total football, the philosophy that the pitch was a canvas and the ball was paint. He moved to Inter Milan, where the weight of expectation pressed down like Mediterranean heat. Italy was difficult. The goals did not flow as they once had. Lesser men might have crumbled. But Bergkamp was not a lesser man. Then came Arsenal. Then came home. In 1995, Arsène Wenger had not yet arrived, but the foundations of a revolution were being laid. Bergkamp became the cornerstone. He was the thinker in a game of runners, the poet in a world of prose. His vision could unlock defenses that seemed impenetrable. His first touch was so immaculate that the ball appeared grateful to meet his boot. There was that goal against Newcastle, of course. The flick, the spin, the finish. 3 touches that will echo through eternity. But there were hundreds of moments just as breathtaking, hidden in matches that history has half forgotten. Bergkamp collected Premier League titles and FA Cups, but statistics never captured his true essence. He was not measured in numbers. He was felt in the spine. They called him the non-flying Dutchman, because a fear of flying kept him grounded when his teammates soared across continents. Yet somehow, this limitation only added to his mystique. He was human after all, beautifully, vulnerably human. He retired in 2006, and the stands at Highbury fell silent for the final time. The stadium itself would soon follow him into history, demolished to make way for the modern world. But what Bergkamp created cannot be demolished. It lives in the memories of everyone who witnessed it, passed down like folklore from generation to generation. Today, at 57, Dennis Bergkamp has stepped into coaching, nurturing young minds just as he once nurtured the football at his feet. The game continues to evolve, growing faster, more athletic, more data-driven. Yet every so often, a young player will produce a moment of pure imagination, and though he was born John Simon Ritchie, a quiet boy from the grey streets of post-war London. But the world would come to know him by another name entirely. Sid Vicious. A name that burned bright, burned fast, and left scars on the face of rock and roll that remain visible to this day. In the brief 21 years he walked this earth, Sid Vicious became the living embodiment of punk rock's most dangerous promise, that anyone, regardless of talent or training, could step onto a stage and shake the foundations of polite society. He couldn't really play bass. Critics and even his own bandmates admitted as much. But when he stood before a crowd, instruments slung low, sneering at the camera, he captured something that technical proficiency never could. He captured rage. He captured alienation. He captured the fury of a generation that felt forgotten. The Sex Pistols found him in 1977, plucked from the London punk scene where he had already made a name for himself through sheer force of presence. He replaced Glenn Matlock, the band's original bassist, and almost immediately, the chaos intensified. Concerts became riots. Interviews became confrontations. And Sid, with his spiky hair and hollow cheeks, became the poster child for everything parents feared about their children. But behind the leather and the safety pins, there was a young man struggling with demons he could never outrun. His relationship with Nancy Spungen was passionate, destructive, and ultimately tragic. They fed each other's addictions, spiraling deeper into heroin's embrace while the music industry watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. In October 1978, Nancy was found dead in their room at New York's Chelsea Hotel. Sid was charged with her murder, though he claimed no memory of that night. He never stood trial. On the 2nd of February, 1979, just one day after being released on bail, Sid Vicious died from a heroin overdose. He was 21 years old. Some called him a murderer. Others called him a victim. Perhaps he was both, or perhaps he was simply a young man who stumbled into a spotlight too bright for anyone to survive. The punk movement he helped define would evolve, splinter, and ultimately reshape popular music for decades to come. But Sid remained frozen in time, forever young, forever angry, forever broken. Today, more than 4 decades after his death, his face still adorns t-shirts worn by teenagers who weren't born until long after the Sex Pistols imploded. They see rebellion. They see freedom. They see everything except the frightened boy beneath the sneer. What a journey through 3 lives that couldn't be more different. A rock star who wanted to save the world, a footballer who turned every touch into poetry, and a punk icon who burned so bright he flamed out at 21. Bono, Bergkamp, and Sid Vicious, each leaving their mark in their own unforgettable way. Now we want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us which of these 3 you think was the most influential. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next episode, and give us a like if you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.